I don't start with a pencil sketch. I know it's weird. A lot of people usually start with a pencil sketch, and if that works for you, that's fine. My issue with the pencil sketch for me is that I tend to get a little bit heavy handed. And so if I start with the watercolor, I don't have to worry about the pencil sketch getting in the way, because sometimes you can see the pencil sketch underneath the watercolor. And for me, that becomes a problem because then I can't see my watercolors as well. So I'm going to start with the thinnest brush. And honestly, the first part of the watercolor for me, it's way more like drawing. Like I don't really start to paint until I have the sketch in there. So I like to just start with a very neutral color like burnt umber, burnt sienna. The color is going to be so light that you almost won't be able to see it. And so this is what I do. The sponge is here because right now my brush is too wet. So I just do this and that dries it off, because in the beginning part of the sketch, I really want the brush to be pretty dry. You don't want it to be all flowy and full of water. That's difficult to do. Okay, so let's get started. And I want to make sure that I really, oh, and actually I should get a paper towel because sometimes I want to just get in there and dab a little bit. Oh God, that's too dark already. See, it's hard with watercolor to keep it as light as you want it to be. So I first want to just get out a general shape of how large I want this to be. I'm going to make it pretty big because I want to make sure that I have enough space to really work the piece. And I know you guys can't see anything right now, but you know what? It's supposed to be that way. Like if you could see my strokes right now, that would not be a good thing in my opinion. That would mean that I was getting too dark. Okay, so really nice bold area, maybe a slight indication of the ears coming down, and then a little bit of the shoulders and the background. I could go, well, I don't want to go too big. That's the thing. I do have a tendency to paint a little bit on the large side. Okay, so that's the very beginning. And what I like to start with, if some of you guys have watched my anatomy lecture on faces, I tend to like starting with the nose, just because the nose is in the middle. So it's easier for me to locate. See, that's even too dark. And so what I do a lot is I will put down the strokes and then I'll dab it with my watercolor. And so let's get in the eye sockets. And you guys can see the eye sockets in this photo, they're really pronounced. They're great. I mean, you guys don't get to complain about eye sockets today because this reference photo is basically handing you the eye sockets. So basic shape for the nose, and then these like creases that come off the side down here. And then for the lip, again, I always tend to do the opening between the lips like this, and then a little indication of the chin down there at the bottom, okay? And I do this all the time. I always make the chin too high, so I'm gonna actually change that, make the chin a little bit bigger like that. And now I'm actually gonna go in and I'm gonna start painting some of the shape of the hair, which I know for some people it sounds a little bit premature to do that, but I think with hair, you really need to have it at the beginning. All right, by the way, you guys, tell me in the chat who here is using watercolor and who here is drawing, because remember, it's fine. You don't have to use watercolor if you don't want to. You guys can use anything that you want. I'm just curious to hear what people are painting with, because actually we've never done a paint along before. This is the first time, and oh my God, it took forever to set up, but that's okay. I'm excited, and I think this is gonna be super fun because it's gonna really open up, I think, a lot of the different media that I can do with you guys live. It's just a matter of, I think, figuring out some of the tech setup. Okay, so now I have the basic structure of the head. I'm gonna try to emphasize the cheekbones more just as a structural thing, because I find that otherwise I won't be thinking about the skull enough. Okay, and now what I'd like to do maybe for the eyes, if you guys didn't hear about it, I did a lecture the other day on how to draw eyes. And I think that would be very helpful for those of you guys who are wondering about specifics like that. So a lot of dabbing in the beginning because I really, really don't want this to get too dark. I think with watercolor, this is my basic approach. It doesn't have to be yours, but I like to work light to dark. And so, especially with watercolor, I'm just really conservative about how dark I get, which is hard for me because I love painting dark stuff. Like, to me, putting down a big swath of black feels awesome. But with watercolor, I gotta control myself a little bit because otherwise it's tricky. Okay, that eye is way too small, so I might have to enlarge in some of this, although it could be the nose, who knows? Okay, maybe I'm gonna shrink the nose a little bit, keep dabbing it. Remember, really, really light, you guys. You should honestly barely be able to see what you're doing right now. And it's tricky here because her eyelashes, they're quite pronounced, but they're, the eyebrows, they're not very pronounced. They're hard to see. And actually, I'm going to erase some up here. So sometimes what I do is I just take my paper towel and I wet it, and I'll just go up to the top and I'll scrub it like this. So that's a way to erase a little bit. But you got to be careful how much you do that, because especially if the paper you're using is not particularly strong, it can sometimes fall apart. Like if you're using regular paper, it can totally fall apart. But I'm using really nice, good quality watercolor paper, which is on a watercolor block. And so for me, I actually can get away with doing that. Okay, I'm going to expand the forehead because I feel like I severely underestimated the scale of the forehead. So I'm doing quite a bit of erasing up here where I got rid of some of the hair. I just want to get the width of the forehead to be a lot more visible. Okay, so a lot of dabbing in the beginning. Okay, by the way, you guys, because we always talk about this quite a bit on these paint-alongs about the people that we're painting. Who do you think this woman is? What is her character? What do you imagine about her? I always like to do that, even if I don't know the person, or even if I do know the person, I like to ask myself, who are they in the context of the portrait? Okay, so now I'm going to work on the eyelids. Her eyelids are very pronounced. So yeah, you guys have no excuse. Like if you're not doing the eyelids, it's your fault because she's handing them to you, which is great. Okay, let's do a little bit more on the lip. I want to get the shape of the lip a bit more visible. And for the opening color, you guys, honestly, it really doesn't matter as long as it's light. I happen to like doing a skin tone just because, like an earth tone for skin, because it just makes more sense. Regardless of the color of somebody's skin, you always want something that's warm, but sometimes you don't. I mean, it's up to you guys. That's sort of my first thought. Okay, I think I need to I gotta solidify where the hair is, because I think the hair is a lot bigger than I think it is. So let me move the hair outwards. And you guys see how important the sponge is, because my problem with the paper towel is the paper towel gets really wet. So I tend to use the paper towel for dabbing and erasing. And I tend to use this when I'm just trying to work out the water, because sometimes your brush is really wet. And so I just try to get rid of it. And the sponge is really helpful because it helps me make the brush a little bit less soggy. And so that's very helpful. Okay, let me get the hairline a little bit more dramatic like this. Who's having fun? I'm having fun. You know, I'm doing a double header today because I didn't do a stream here at Art Prof, but I did one for my Project Open Door students who I'm working with this semester. And so, yeah, I've been doing drawings like all day today, which is awesome. I mean, it's like, for me, it's an excuse to paint and not have to feel like I have to be incredible. Well, I sort of feel that way sometimes, but I don't know. It's too much energy. It takes too much time to have to be incredible all the time. Okay, let's block in that. And maybe just a little indication of the pupils. I don't want to do too much. Her eyes are sort of pushing over to the left. So more like this. And then maybe a slight indication of the nostrils. And then down here, you guys, remember, sternocleidomastoid. Oh wait, we have not covered that yet. Yeah, I'm going to do a stream pretty soon about the neck. But down here, this is the pit of the neck. This is the sternocleidomastoid, and you can see a little bit of her clavicle on the right-hand side. It's, ooh, whoa, that is way too dark. Okay, oh, crap, shoot. Okay, don't do that. This is why. It's like you don't want it to be that dark, because You don't want anything to be that pronounced at this stage. You got to keep it really, really light. Okay, maybe a little bit more on the clavicle on this side. Just pull that in. Oh, too dark still. Okay, guys, I think, well, I don't know, I'm still having trouble with this hairline. Maybe if I make this hair more dramatic and pull this hair out. Yeah, because I had the hair here at one point, but I'm actually going to erase that with my paper towel. So yeah. By the way, you guys, what I'm painting on, this is called a watercolor block. So this is not the same thing as just like a pad of watercolor paper. It's actually sealed on all four sides. And so my paper is going to get all wrinkly. And then when it dries, it's going to dry flat. So I love these. They're expensive though. That's the only thing. They're not super cheap. But if you can get a watercolor block, wow, it makes a really big difference, guys. Okay. All right. So that's the basic shape of what I want to be doing. I might want to pull out her cheekbones and her lower jaw a little bit more. Maybe more like this. I feel like I'm making her a little bit too thin, but who knows? We'll fix that later. Okay, so does everybody see how we're starting with that? Okay, now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna whip out the big brushes. Ha ha ha. So a brush this big, I think for a lot of people, this is really scary looking. Because it's like, oh my God, what am I gonna do with this? This is really gigantic. But this is important because I wanna block out the sense of light and shadow, okay? So for this, I'm actually gonna start with a pretty bright saturated color. Like she has a lot of pinks and oranges. So actually I'm going to use this like crazy bright, like cadmium red color, which is a little bit insane, but let's just do it anyway. Because we just want to give it like a good wash. So we understand what that's going to be like. So now I'm going to take, this is that scrap piece of paper. And I just want to see how dark that is. Maybe a little bit darker. And see, it's a little bit red, maybe a little touch of burnt sienna into that cadmium red just to tone it down. Let's see. Okay, that's a little bit better. Okay, so let's try that. And what I'm going to really try to do, I'm going to try to paint pretty dry. In the beginning, I don't like to paint things that are so mushy. I like to really get it in there. Okay, so I'm really just thinking about light. And this might feel horrifically messy, but I think that's sort of the point in the beginning. Like you really just want to block things in. And right now, I'm just trying to like fill for a little while. So it's okay. I might actually just go in and paint over this. And I know it looks like a mess. I know. Trust me. I know what a mess it looks like. But you got to start somewhere. Okay? So let's get in maybe this feeling of the cheekbone. And so even at the stage where I am just blocking things in, it's still okay to be pretty bold, guys. Okay? And then what I'm going to do here is maybe I'll use like a burnt umber underpainting for the hair, because this is definitely a slightly different color. And I love these brushes because isn't the texture so cool? I just love that. Oh, that feels good. I just love that. Okay, I'm going to get another paper towel because that one's getting really wet. And I really want my painting to have a freshness to it. So that's why I like the dry brushing. I mean, I suspect for a lot of people, that's why watercolor is really hard, because it is oftentimes like really flowy and like going all over the place, but it's like, it doesn't have to be that way. And so that's why you guys see I'm not using a lot of watercolor in my brush. I need to get a little more red in there. Okay, let's get my test paper again because I can't totally remember. Yeah, maybe a little bit darker, especially down here in the shoulders. So let's just block in some big shapes over here. And I'm just looking at the direction of her clavicle and then this coming downwards like that. See, I just love these marks. Like a lot of this is the texture of the paper. And people have different feelings about paper. Some people like rough paper, some people like soft paper. Actually, tell me in the chat, do you guys like smooth paper or do you like the paper that's a little bit rougher? Because I love the rough paper. The rough paper is awesome. It's so satisfying. Okay. And then maybe a little more on the forehead, just to establish that shape a little bit better. And again, this is a place where I think with painting, you guys, honestly, if you have trouble with painting, paint with a big brush. Makes a really big difference. It's awkward, feels really awkward, but it helps. It helps so much. So even in here, I'm going to bring in something like that. So this brush might feel horrifically big for you guys, but it's like, I think you need that. I think it's necessary. Okay, maybe a little bit more in there. See, my issue with watercolor, and tell me you guys if you have this too, is like, I just get really, I overdo it. And so what I'm trying to do right now, like I'm actively right now trying to not do too much. I'm trying to control myself because watercolor, I think it does get away from you sometimes. Okay, let me just fill in the inside of the mouth like that. All right, guys, let me take a short break because I've done quite a bit and I'm gonna just stop and take a look at the chat and see what you guys are saying. So give me 1 second, just need to grab my stuff to do that. All right, so let me see what people are doing in the chat. Wow, there's a lot of people here today. This is awesome. So excited. Okay. Sherling is saying, for me, watercolor is so hard because I'm impatient. Yeah, and Allie's saying, I'm addicted to these videos even though I've never even studied arts beyond high school. I lecture engineering at university. It's so satisfying to play your videos in the back as I mark coursework. That's great. I mean, I know a lot of people do listen to us when they're painting or in the studio, but hey, if you're marking papers in engineering, I think that's cool too. Okay, wow, looks like a lot of people are using watercolor. Very cool. And let's see what else people are saying about their materials. Like Luis is saying, I love using the sponge to sop up extra water. Plus it doesn't break apart like paper towels can. Yeah, and especially like if you guys are painting on site, it's so nice just to carry the sponge. Otherwise you're carrying all these like yucky paper towels. So actually a lot of my watercolor technique, you guys, it's actually more suited for travel because I'm not really a studio watercolor painter. I mean, I suppose I could be at some point, but you'll notice that a lot of the stuff I'm using is like really parsed down. It's so that I can travel really easily and not worry about how much stuff. All right, let's see. Victor says, this really makes me want to try the medium again. And let's see, I never liked the tiny brush. Okay. And Ron Nook is saying, that's how it goes. Better, worse, worse, better. Yeah, that sounds about right. I would say that's pretty much it. And actually, this is good because I can give the painting a little bit of time to rest and to dry. I mean, the painting right now, it's not that wet, but it is nice to have that dry time. And I do know people who are like really impatient. They actually have like a hair dryer nearby. It helps. It's really great. Like sometimes when you have that. Levi Fiction says, love cold press rough feeling. I love the roughness. I love these kinds of strokes. Like, does everybody see these like really almost brittle, gritty strokes? Like, I love that stuff. I know some people like the more flowy stuff, but I just happen to really enjoy the rough paper. And Victor says, does it mean the paper is bad when it gets really bubbly? Well, see, that's why, you guys, the watercolor block, like if I go in and I show you guys, do you guys see the image in the lower left-hand corner? That's a watercolor block. That is not the same thing as a pad of individual water sheets because this is all sealed on the edges. And so it can get really warped while I'm painting, but then when it dries totally flat. They're awesome. I really, really love those. So Raindrops is asking, so cold press is rough paper. That's what I'm using right now. Hot press is smooth. I really hope I got that right. I always forget. I'm pretty sure I remember now because Alex Rowe and I have like talked about it so often. All right. So what else are people saying? Yellow Heart Studio says, I love smoother paper. Da Vinci watercolors are my favorites. Yeah, there's so many different types of watercolor brands. And so guys, just use whatever works for you. I mean, I have Winsor & Newton and they're fantastic, but there's so many other great brands out there as well. Okay, cool. So let me get back. Let's do some more painting and see if I can get this a little bit further along. So let me grab my big brush and I don't know, maybe I should segue to the middle one because I did block out what I wanted to block out. So actually, let me give myself a little bit more space. So I think what I want to do next is maybe put in some pinks. So I don't know about you guys, but I love alizarin crimson. It's such a good color for skin tone because it has a little bit of blue and it's very purpley red and it looks like blood. So it's really great. I really enjoy this a lot. So I'm just going to go in and do some very basic, simple strokes. And I do want to keep this. See, sometimes what I'll do is I'll work the paint out on the paper like this, and then I can go back in and go there later on. I'm really trying to control myself right now. Like for me, watercolor is all about control. It's so hard to control it. And the thing is, like, I don't want to make it so tough that it like gets too tight because I don't really like the way that looks. On the other hand, I do have to feel like I'm actually doing something. And it's tricky because I want it to look painterly, but I don't want it to be mushy. Does that make sense? It's like you want the flow without any of the mush, I guess, for lack of a better word. All right. Let's punch up some of the pinks. Like there's a lot of pink up here. And really, guys, what watercolor comes down to, it's all layers. You got to think in terms of layers. If you don't think in terms of layers, it can be really hard to just think about how those colors work together. Okay, and maybe here. And you know something? I should paint the background. That would really help. So actually, let me clean my brush. And I think what I'm going to do is sort of like I don't know, it's a little bit like raw sienna, maybe with a little bit of cerulean blue. We're going to get really nerdy about the colors today, guys. just warning you about that. It's sort of like a sickly, pukey green in the background. So I'm just going to punch up some of the cerulean blue. And let's just give it, at the very least, just a quick swatch. Just so we have that contrast. I mean, for sure, I'll go back in and I'll add more later. But I just want to like contextualize the painting a little bit better. So again, the mixtures I'm using raw sienna and cerulean blue. And use whatever you want, guys. This is just what I happen to be using. You don't have to use these colors. Oh, crap. Everybody see that? This is why you want to get your paper towels. You want them to be available and ready, right? So does everybody see, like putting in this green, it's such a big difference in terms of your perception of the face. So I think this is really necessary because now that the green is in here, I am really looking at the pinks and the reds in the face quite differently. So let me just add a little bit more blue in raw sienna. I love cerulean blue. Cerulean blue is like, oh, it's such a great color. It works wonders for you. So discover cerulean blue if you have not yet. Okay. All right, so that's a pretty good first pass. And I think what I want to do now is just give the hair a little bit more of a shift in color because it's a little bit too pink for me right now. So maybe I'll do like a quick glaze of like a cadmium lemon on top. See if that helps. By the way, I want to give a quick shout out to 10,000 Crows. Thank you so much for the super chat. We always appreciate your support, guys, because we want Art Prof to always be 100% free. But we can't do that without your help. So every time you guys help us out, we greatly appreciate it. Okay, maybe a quick glaze of yellow on that side. Yeah, okay. Who else feels like their painting's really mushy? I definitely am feeling that way. It's hard. It's really hard in the very beginning. And so what I'm going to do now is push out the eye socket over here on that side, and then maybe a little bit more here. By the way, you guys, you really should be thinking, I think, pretty far in advance. Where do you want the white of the page to remain? Now, I know some people use that stuff. It's called that artist masking fluid. You can definitely use that. I've never really used it because, I don't know, I feel like I can't think that far in advance. But you should be very conscious of, okay, well, what do I want to leave white? Because that's something you cannot get it back. Like once you guys get rid of that, that's pretty much it. So that's a very important thing, I think, to stay conscious of. Okay, and now here on the side, there's such light tones. I don't want to overdo it. So I'm just gonna give a little hint of some of that cadmium red. I mean, this is tricky too, because her skin is pretty fair. And so you want to be careful you don't put down too many colors. Okay, let's just dab some of this. And then maybe a little bit more down here at the bottom. So somebody asked earlier how long this draw along is going to be. I have no idea. Let's see how long it takes me. I hope it doesn't take 6 hours. I mean, I would hope that I could get it done faster than that, but we'll see. I really have no idea, guys. So just hang out, and you don't have to hang out the whole time. It's really up to you guys. Okay, so what I think I'm going to do now is maybe just a couple touches of maybe some blues and purples. Like, does everybody see this eye socket here? There's so much blue and purple. So what I'm going to use now, let's just dab up some of these colors. And I'm going to get some French ultramarine, which is a really beautiful, deep, dark blue. And I'm going to grab my scrap. Oh, that's way too, ugh, that looks really bad. Okay, maybe some cobalt blue. Ugh, that looks terrible. Okay, we need some alizarin crimson. Oh, geez, that is way too much alizarin crimson. Okay, let's not do that. Let's get some blue. Maybe if I clean up some of my palette, that'll make a big difference. Okay, maybe this is a little bit better. Does everybody see that's a little bit more dramatic in terms of the blue being more visible? So let's see. Still a little bit too red. Let's put a little bit of ultramarine. I mean, I'm not that picky about mixing watercolors, honestly, because a lot of it changes when you put it on the paper. Okay, so that's a little bit better. All right, so now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna really try to get some structure. Let's gonna get in this little bit and really get this eye socket to like pop. Yeah, oh, that felt good. Has anybody had a moment where you're like, oh, that feels good? That was awesome. Okay, maybe a little touch on this side. And then here, I wanna darken this area to pull out the eye socket a little bit more. And then maybe on this side, there's actually a lot of purple on the right-hand side. So I'm gonna mix up a little bit more of that alizarin crimson and the ultramarine in here like this. And we just really need to give this some contrast because there's a lot going on in here with the clavicle and then coming downwards like this. Oh, that felt good. Nice. Let's see. Yes, and by the way, if you guys want a high-res version of the reference photo, join our Discord server, and then you guys will get a chance to have a higher res version, because I know it is hard when you're just trying to paint off the YouTube video. It's oftentimes very difficult to do. Okay, maybe I need to get a little darker. See, I'm always very hesitant for watercolor to get dark because it feels so permanent. You guys in the chat, tell me in the chat, do you guys have trouble with the watercolor, like it just getting way too dark too fast? Because I really have trouble with that. I find that very hard to control that. That's really, I think, why for a lot of people watercolor is so hard, because there's that control factor that you have to consider. Just want to give a shout out to Gargi for the super chat. Again, always appreciate your support, you guys. You make it possible for us to keep Art Prof up and running and free. Because you know what? I get people all the time who are like, well, if you guys want to solve your budget problems, just charge for your content. And I'm like, but I don't want to, because the second we do that, then all these people can't participate. And I've never wanted it to be that way. I've always wanted this to be for everybody who wants to do it, be able to have that access, because I don't think being an artist should have, or learning how to be an artist, I don't think it should have to do with how much money you have. I think it should be something that everybody has a right to. Okay, let's get in maybe a bit more down here on the neck. I want to show that pit of the neck. So does everybody notice that whenever I mix a mixture, I put it everywhere? I don't just paint one spot. I like to spread the color around, so that way it doesn't feel isolated to one spot. That really helps me a lot. Okay, I think I need to get the eyelids a little bit more prominent. So I'm just mixing up some more of that color. Okay, that's pretty good. And maybe like here, like this part. Now see, this is way too wet. I see, here's the thing. I don't like painting when things are super wet. Tell me in the chat, do you guys prefer watercolor when it's like really mushy and flowy, or do you like it better when it's more dry? I think it's sort of like a personal preference thing. One is not correct. It's just some are more, people have different preferences about what they like to do with their work. All right, maybe a little bit more here. And you know, this really needs more. I need more. Oh, crap, don't do that. Sometimes the brush, it just has a mind of its own. It's pretty interesting. All right, maybe a little more on this side. And again, if you guys want to see more about my painting technique, I recommend you watch my tutorial where I paint on site in Utah, because it's a totally different subject. And it's interesting to see how things are so different in a context like that. Okay, maybe a little dab of purple here and a little bit here, like that. Okay, that's a pretty good start. Still feels very mushy, but you know what? That's fine. It's supposed to be that way. It's not supposed to look good. I feel like watercolors like that. Like it just looks really bad for a long, well, I don't know. I think that's everything. Don't you guys feel like a lot of paintings, they just have to look really bad for a long time? Who else is thinking that? Okay, it's really bad. I'm fulfilling my quota. I'm doing it, making it happen. I'm just giving this a punch of contrast because I'm sort of losing this area. All right, so that looks like a pretty good beginning. And you guys will notice that I am trying really hard. Like I'm holding myself back in terms of really going to town with contrast. I don't want to do that, because if I do that, I'm going to get distracted. Okay. Oh, that was way too wet. I need to use my sponge more. A lot of this is about like organizing your sponges. Make sure that things are going where you want them to go. Okay. Maybe a little bit more at the top. Well, the issue is that the photo is a little bit cropped. So I suspect that there's actually more hair than I'm going to put in here, but that's okay. That's fine. All right, I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to look at the chat, see what you guys are talking about. All right, I'm just going to scroll up and see what you guys are talking about for a little bit. Let's see what people are saying. Longbelt says these first layers are really satisfying to put down. I like it too, Longbelt, because I just like the big, gigantic strokes. I find those very, very satisfying. Jericho says, I prefer wet on dry painting techniques, but when painting the base colors, I prefer wet on wet because it creates a soft effect. See, I feel like maybe I need to give that more of a chance. I think I'm just like afraid. I just like dry brushing because I feel like I can control it more, but then again, I'm a control freak, so maybe that's just my problem. Who knows? And let's see. AJ says, it is the stiff brushes weird and to me isn't valuable for watercolors. You don't see the pulling on the colors on the edges. It depends. I mean, I feel like with watercolor, you really can use anything. I mean, if you guys want to use a bristle brush, you can. It's harder to do. But I feel like with oil paints, it's like you really should not use watercolor brushes for oil painting. Like that really is a pain. Whereas I feel like watercolor, you really can do anything. Ethan says, I don't have enough patience for watercolor. Well, see, I don't know that it's patience as much as it is understanding how to structure the media. Because I am not a patient person, guys. I am the type of person, like I think a thought, I just want to do it right away. And I think with watercolor, what helped me was just understanding what I could do. And I think for a long time, I just had no idea what the options were. What really helped me, actually, if you guys want to look at really strong watercolor and wash drawings, look at Andrew Wyeth. You can look at John Singer Sargent, but you're just going to cry. If you look at John Singer Sargent's watercolor, you're just going to feel like crap about yourself, so I don't recommend that. Andrew Wyeth, again, is incredible, but there's something about his work, I think, it's a little bit more minimal. It's not as flashy as, say, the John Singer Sargent painting, so I feel a little bit less intimidated, but it's up to you guys. Marcus is saying, hello from Brazil, finally able to watch one of the live streams while streaming. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Marcus. I really appreciate you guys coming in here. Celestrio says, I think it depends painter to painter. You can make every face of a painting look good and finished. Some people can't do that. Well, it's not that you can't do that. It's just that everybody has a different way of thinking about it. Yeah, so this is interesting. Like Elijah is saying, I've always seen watercolor as a fast medium, where we had other people before saying, oh, I don't have the patience for that. I think maybe the thing about watercolor is just that it's very elastic. Like you really can push it to be certain things. Whereas I think with oil, because oil is not as thin and as washy, there's more limitations like in the moment. Like there's certain things you can't do because it's not dry. Watercolor dries really fast, which is really great. And Mac Babe 72 says Sargent's work is a beautiful example of capturing light in watercolor. Absolutely. And I freaking hate that guy because I'm like, you know, thanks to you, we all have inferiority complexes as artists. And I'm like, thank goodness you're not living in my time period. Like I would be very sad if I like picture if you're like in art class and John Singer Sargent, like young John Singer Sargent before he got famous, like I would just cry. That would make me really, really sad. Cool. So Neil is doing the hair dry technique. Yeah, do that whenever you guys want. All right, cool. Let's do a little bit more painting. And let's see where I can go with this. I think it feels so mushy. And actually, you know what I think it is? I feel funny about the hair. I feel like the hair is too, I think it's not big enough. It's really hard to tell. Everything's just so mushy. I think what I want to do, let me see, let's punch up some of these colors. The thing is, the skin on the left-hand side is so light, and I really don't want to kill all of the whites. So I'm going to be very careful and just block in a few colors. Again, it's like identify where are you going to leave the white of the page. I'm probably going to leave it on the nose. Like, does everybody see that highlight? That's pretty strong, so I'm going to leave that in there. And you guys can see, like, I don't mix my watercolors very well. Does anybody here do that? Do any of you guys like mix your colors? Because I don't. I just sort of do it, which is so funny to me because oil paint, I am much more like that. Oil paint, I like sit down, I like really mix individual colors and I match things. I don't tend to do that so much with watercolor. It's a lot more spontaneous, I think. Okay. There's a lot of pink down here. Maybe a little bit more of this cadmium. Let's see. Yeah, maybe something more like that. I mean, later on, you guys can notice that the colors I'm using, they're pretty bland. I'm not really using anything that's that dramatic in terms of saturation, but I'll get there eventually. Just right now, I don't want to deal with that. Okay. Let me see. I guess I'm ready to start pulling out a couple of shapes. I don't want to do it too soon though, because I know myself and I know that I have a tendency to get a little overboard with stuff like that. So actually, let's just get in, see this like really big plane that's across the forehead? I think that's really pretty. All right, let's try that. And then maybe a little bit of the burnt umber down here on the side. All right, I think that's pretty, oh no, sorry. Let's do a little bit more. Maybe just like on the chin area, like here, I feel like that needs a little bit more structure. Because guys, even though this is a painting, I'm still thinking about anatomy. I'm still thinking about structure and how things get affected. So don't tell yourself that because you're painting, you don't have to think about that stuff, because guess what? You do. All right. Let's see. How about a pass of pink up there? maybe bring that area together. Yeah, and you know something else? I am going to do just a touch more on that background because, again, like the hair is like really driving me a little crazy. I need a more visible boundary of where the hair begins and where it ends. So I'm just going to toss that in there. And maybe that'll help me define the edges of the hair a little bit more successfully because right now I'm struggling with that. Okay. Yeah, well, I don't know. It's a little bit better. I'm really trying to reserve judgment because you know what? Once I go down that rabbit hole of trying to critique myself, it's not a good thing. So I'm going to try really hard not to do that. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to my small brush and I'm going to just like punch in a couple very dark areas. So that way I have an understanding of just a couple moments of clarity. And so here I'm really going to add like a lot of blue, maybe a little more cerulean. See, I don't want it to look black. Sometimes the blue can almost look black. That's pretty blue. Okay, let's try that. And I'm just going to use this to punch up a couple of the details. Like for example, the mouth really needs work. So let me just get in a little bit in there. This is it's too wet. I like it better when it's more on the dry side. By the way, you guys who are using watercolors, who's using cakes and who's using tubes? I like the tubes better because I like when the color is a little bit more juicy, but it depends. I mean, there's no correct way. It's just what's better. Okay. So maybe like a little indication down here. So you guys can see what I'm doing now is so much closer, I think, to drawing than it is painting. Like I'm really just trying to get some of the more pronounced areas, like especially in the eyes, maybe just a little bit of the pupil in there. I mean, I don't know how far I'm going to get with this. It's possible that I'm not going to get very far at all. I mean, who knows? But we'll see. If it turns, I mean, you guys can help me with this. If you think that maybe I didn't get far enough and we're 2 hours in or something, I'm happy to do a follow-up to this one if you guys want to see me like really work it. Because oftentimes with the draw alongs, it's like it takes too long. So yeah, if you guys want me to do like part 2 of this painting, just let me know in the chat. If it turns out it takes longer, which it probably will, because painting is slow. It's not something that you can do that quickly. Okay, maybe just a quick shape back here for the ear. Ooh, I'm starting to get nervous now. Anybody else like get nervous? Like I get, don't want to mess it up. Okay, especially in the eyes. I want to retain some of those whites. So I'm going to really slow down here. Okay, and then, yeah, this is way more like drawing right now, guys, what I'm doing. Because I'm just trying to like pull out a couple of sections. You know, I don't like this brown. This brown is terrible. I think I want to go back to this like bluish color that I had. Okay, more in like this. Okay, and then you can see a little bit of her teeth. So I'm going to put in a slight shape there. And then this wrinkle on the side is a pretty three-dimensional wrinkle, so I'm really going to push that in. Maybe on this side, there's also another wrinkle that comes down that's pretty dramatic. So although wrinkles are quite cosmetic, I feel like these two are very important because they really say something about what's going on. Okay, maybe a little bit more drawing on this side, just to accentuate a little bit of the chin. This part of the top, I want to add more, but I'm actually waiting for it to dry because it's a little bit too wet. So you know what I'm going to do right now? I'm going to add more burnt umber to this blue mixture. And instead, I'm going to just punch in a couple of these little spots that are near the hair because there's this like one spot back here that is quite a bit more like that. Okay, so maybe some dark there, coming down like this. I don't want it to be too much. It's tricky. Like a lot of this, I'm putting it down and then regretting it later, which happens. That's okay. That's part of the process, I think. That's okay. By the way, I'm going to give a quick shout out to Daniel Castelli, who's saying, I didn't know it was possible to use watercolor and not swear. I use tubes and a wet paper towel to keep the paint wet. Thanks for what you do. Well, see, you guys aren't really seeing me in my natural state, because if I swear, all of our videos are going to get demonetized. So I actually have a very compelling reason to not swear. But let me tell you that there are a couple words that you have not gotten to hear me say on video that probably would be used if I was not on YouTube. So yeah, it definitely depends. Depends on the context. Okay. Oh God, I feel like I'm so slow. Does anybody else feel that way? I'm like, why is this taking so long? I don't know. I have trouble gauging it, because you know what? Watercolor, it's not really my main thing. Like, I like it and I think it's fun, but it's not really my forte. Like, Alex Rowe is really good at watercolor. He's much better than I am. We'll have to get him on the stream at some point. But yeah, watercolor is something I still struggle with quite a bit. So it's not easy at all. Okay, see, I'm going back and forth between the big brush and the little brush. Ugh, this, like, I don't know, it looks all weird. Like, what's going on? All right, I gotta get... This is the point in the painting where you've, like, painted enough that you say to yourself, well, it shouldn't look this crappy, but it does. But then it's like you're not far enough along that anything looks really good or satisfying. It's that, like, really annoying plateau. Has anybody hit that plateau where you're like, yeah, it's not that great, but I also don't have the excuse of saying, oh, I just started 5 minutes ago. You know what I mean? Okay, so what I'm going to do now, we need to get some purples, like really visible. Well, I don't know. Give me a second. Maybe I do need, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do some blue glazes. Okay, let's do some cerulean blue glazes, because the thing is, we've built up enough layers now that I actually think I can do that. And actually, I can paint the blue over some of this. I think I need French ultramarine. I think the cerulean is maybe a little too yellow. Like, cerulean blue has a lot of yellow in it. And French ultramarine, I think I need a little more alizarin crimson. Sorry, I'm acting like such a big color dork, and I'm not usually like that. Okay, what I'm going to do now is block in some of this area. And I do want to add, let's try adding some cadmium red. Actually, that might be kind of fun. Let's just see. I have no idea. Because I need to darken the side of the nose. Like, the nose is definitely not dramatic enough. So I want that to get in there. And then also the lower part of the eyelid. Very helpful to have that articulated. And then even more so here at the top. I feel like this top area is just way too light. I really want it to have a little bit more motion to it. Have that go across, maybe more on this side. Okay, let's get some, like, strong colors in here, guys. Like the oranges on the left side. Ooh, oh my God, that looks really horrible. Okay, let me try, maybe if I mix some alizarin. Well, I don't know. Let me see. It's hard to know. Like, that's why these test papers are really good to use. I think I need more yellow. Like, maybe this, like, cadmium yellow will help a little bit, because I think that this is too red. I don't know. Let's see. It's a little bit thick. Ugh, that looks disgusting. Gross. Okay, maybe not that much yellow. Let's add some more cadmium. See if that's a little bit better. Too orange now. Oh, I gotta just do it. Okay, let's see if that's a little bit better. Okay, let's see if we can put some of that stuff in. This is funny. John T says, this is too relatable, though I do like the unfinished look. Very cool. And B-Dog Boo says, I always end up using too much red in my skin tones. I feel like I don't use enough reds. I feel like I get a little wimpy about the reds. I don't know. It's a little hard to explain. Okay. Let's get in. This brush is too small. Guys, don't think that your small brush is going to do everything for you. It won't. It's really one of those things where it can almost like stab you in the back later. So a little brush is not the solution to everything. It seems like it is, but it's not. So don't tell yourself that that is going to take care of everything for you, because it won't. I think I lost, did I lose the nostril? Oh, now the nostrils are like not, crap. Oh no, come on, get rid of that. Shoot, I'm glad I noticed that. Okay, it's time to go to the little brush. We're having some emergencies here. And let's try to draw in that nostril a little bit better, because yeah, that was a bad call, guys. That was not good. Okay, let's get some of that in there. Oh, now I feel like my painting is getting like, so, what's the word? It feels really muddy now. I know it's not yet, but I feel like it's on its way. Does that make any sense? It's like I can feel that that's about to happen. It's hard to describe. Okay, I do want to fill the inside of the mouth, because it's a pretty it's almost green, actually, the inside of the mouth. So I just want to take some dark blues and get in here and do this. Well, I don't want her mouth to, it's hard. There's like all these, like, you can see the teeth have glimmers on them, but I don't want to do too much of that. And maybe I should articulate this a little bit better. So maybe up here at the top. It's tricky. I mean, this is such a cool portrait, but there's a lot to paint. That's what's so hard about this, in my opinion. Okay, let's do, I just want to get in like the pink of the lip. I just want to show that color change. It's a little bit dramatic right now, but oh, guys, I haven't painted in so long. I'm so desperately out of shape. Oh my God. Who else? When's the last time you guys painted? It's been a while. Like, I really, honestly, I really cannot remember. I really have no idea when's the last time I painted. Like, so bad. Okay. Yeah, I really like want to draw in these eyes because they're beautiful. That. Oh God, you guys, I just made the mistake of looking at my painting. I should not have done that. I was in blissful ignorance before, and now I looked at it on the screen and I'm like, no, don't do that. I want to keep building it up. It's slow. I mean, who here feels that, do you guys feel like your painting is going slow, or do you think it's going fast? Like, let me know what you actually think, where you think it's going. If you feel like it's dragging, or if you really feel like it's moving along. I don't know. Every single painting is really different. Like, it really, really depends on how things are going. Okay, and I do want to pull out, there's this like really dark shadow behind the ear, and I just want that to be more prominent. Like, especially here, we definitely need some dark. Like here, I just want to layer some of that green on top so it's more visible. And then maybe even more on this side as well. Okay, it's getting there. Let's see. B-Dog Boo says, very relatable demo. I cried through the whole painting and then liking it when I finish. Well, that's what I hope ends up happening. It doesn't always happen. Joan says, sadly, I have not painted in 2 weeks. Schoolwork is keeping me busy. Yep, for sure. Abby Benko is saying, where's your palette from? I can't remember. I feel like I got it at the RISD store a really, really long time ago. I don't know. I mean, I don't think palettes make that big a deal. I mean, honestly, you could paint on a dish. Like, it really does not matter. And Elizabeth Byer says, Paula, I scheduled time for naps and hobbies while in grad school. It kept me sane. You guys, the only reason I am awake right now is because I took a nap. Because I did a draw along this morning. I was so tired that I was like, oh my God, if I don't take a nap, I will not be able to do the paint along tonight. So it's very important. Deidre Brooks says, I'm a teacher, haven't painted for myself since August. My watercolors always get muddy, so I can relate. Oh, wow. You guys who are teachers, bravo to you for what you are doing right now, because it's so hard for teachers. If you guys are students, be nice to your teachers. They're under a lot right now, and I just am amazed at what people are putting up with in very, very difficult situations. So kudos to you teachers for doing what you do every day. Oh my God, that looks horrible. That looks like a wound. That was really, really bad, guys. I feel like I lost the nose. Like, what the heck is going on with the nose? I feel like it's not, I think I added like the shadow. I think I need to scrub this out. Like, I don't really like doing that, but sometimes you have to when you lose the shape. So I'm going to let that dry a little bit, and then I think I'm going to bring it back because that really is truly bothering me quite a bit. Sea of Hope says, wow, I love how the red and blue are so intense. What made you decide to use the blue instead of gray for shadows? Well, generally speaking, guys, I don't like to use gray for shadows because gray is the quickest trip to mud town, basically, with watercolor. And so the blue, it has the same amount of contrast, but it has like a little kick. It's like a little spice to it that you're not going to get with black paint. And so I just really try to avoid black paint. I don't do it until the very end. So it's really, really tricky. And let's see. Paola says, trying to find the fine line. That's a good idea. Thank you, 10K. You got this, Clara. It looks amazing. And Elena says, I'm a beginner in watercolor. Haven't used watercolor in a month or so. Yep. Mel Dixon says, maybe a shadow under the nose. Yes, that would be a good idea, wouldn't it? I probably should take care of that. Marcus says, it's been a long time since I painted with watercolors. I feel like I always get stuck in using it thinking it will be similar to pencils. Yep, not at all. It's really, really different for sure. Owen Feinstein says, I don't own black paint. Black paint has its uses, okay? I'm not saying never, ever use black paint. I just think that when you start painting, what I see a lot with students is they start to rely on the black as the solution for everything. And so sometimes if you take that away temporarily and then you bring it back later, people have a better understanding of how to actually make that work. Okay, let's get back into some painting. I gotta fix this nose. It's really, really bugging me, you guys. Okay, you know what I gotta do? I just gotta like do some drawing, okay? Because drawing would really help me here. And this is where I'm really gonna slow down and just paint. Oh crap, what am I doing? Ugh. Okay. Oh, this is like one of those times where it's like you really wish you could like, you wish there was like an undo button the way there is in Procreate. I know a lot of people have very much come to rely on that in a lot of digital painting because it is so easy just to press undo. Okay, I'm just gonna push that back up. Yeah, so sometimes you guys will find, this for me at least, like you need to slow down in the watercolor process because there are some parts where I just want to draw. Like I don't, oh God, that looks so, shoot, the nostrils drive me crazy. Who else is being driven crazy by the nostril? Please, please somebody else say yes. Nostrils are driving me, they're like crooked and, see now this is totally in danger of getting super muddy and fussy. And my whole fantasy of you're going to be so gestural and spiny is out the window. Totally. That's a little bit better. Still not feeling great about it. Okay, let me go back in and let's just redo that big patch of, oh God, that got muddy too. I have to not second guess myself. I feel like that's what I'm doing right now. That's not helping, is I'm starting to get a little bit picky, which I don't recommend, guys. It's just right now I'm trying to fix up a couple spots. Like now is the time where it's like, oh my God, stuff is really starting to go wrong. Like in the beginning, you're like, oh yeah, I'll get to that. And now you're like, okay, it's bad. It's really bad, guys. Okay, here, I just want to pull in more contrast on the side of the chin. It's a little bit better. There's quite a bit of reflected light here. So I think what I want to do is I do want to darken this, but I don't want to get rid of that reflected light. So let's just pull this down like this. Okay, so see, did everybody see this? Like I really want that patch of light to stay there because if I don't, I'm going to lose all my volume that's in there. So maybe here I can try to be more gestural, like a dry. Oh, shoot. Oh, come on. Oh, see, I'm starting to get frustrated because I feel like it's starting to have that muddy look it's like too many colors. And I'm like, oh man, you should have done that by now. You know what? This might be dry. Actually, that's still really wet. Like, why is that area so wet? I have no idea. Okay, let's get in a little bit more orange. So maybe more of this cadmium yellow to add to the cadmium red, but not too much. You don't want so much. Maybe a little bit more. I don't know. I feel like as much as her face seems like it's like peachy in tone, there's actually like a lot of purple in there. So I'm going to build up some of that. Let's see if these washes are going to start to come together a little bit more like this. Yeah, stick with the thick brush, guys. I'm glad that I'm resisting the temptation of the smaller brush, because the smaller brush will trick you. Like, it'll make you think that you're doing well when actually it's totally stabbing you in the back. It's like middle school, you know? You guys ever have middle school friends stab you in the back? Well, I have to admit, I stabbed a couple people in the back. It wasn't just other people. I definitely had my fair share of that as well. I think we all did. Oh my God, everybody's so horrible in middle school. Like, just think about all the like super like really petty things that you do in middle school and how you like so regret it later. Okay, I gotta jump down here. I think I'm ignoring that lower section, so maybe I need to get in some more purples, more alizarin crimson. So let's just get in just darker tones. I feel like I'm missing a lot of the contrast here on this side. So let's just block that in. You know what I really need though? I really need some like burnt umber or something, or maybe some Pines Gray. I don't know. I'm not usually that into Pines Gray, but then Alex Rowe, who's one of the teaching artists here, he got me really into Pines Gray. I was like, okay, Pines Gray, that's cool. Okay, maybe some on that side. And I do want just a little here. Like, I'm really trying hard to preserve those highlights because her skin really has a lot of texture to it. And so I don't really want my painting to be too smooth. Like, I don't want the skin to look too perfect. Actually, that's why I know you guys know I don't like Pinterest. The people on it, they look too plastic to me. I mean, don't get me wrong, Pinterest is fine. I just think in terms of finding pictures of people that look real, it's maybe not the best place to look. Like, other places I think are better as far as like real people. If that's what you want. I mean, if you want to paint Pinterest people, go ahead. That's fine, you know? Okay. Let's punch up some of the red down here. Maybe a little bit more. See, I'm always afraid to put in the really bright colors, but maybe that's exactly what I need right now. I don't know. Let's try it. Let's just try something really bold, like bright red. Ugh, okay. Bad idea. Don't do that. Maybe we should not do that. Okay. Like this. I do want more texture back here. We need some more French ultramarine. I don't know. I'm actually not using that many colors. I'm sort of surprised. I thought I would have used more by now, but I guess not. It sort of depends on what's going on. Let's see. I'll take a look at some more questions and let's see. Jericho says, one way of avoiding muddy colors is using 2 jars of water, one for cleaning the brush, the other is your source of clean water. That is kind of brilliant. How come I did not think of that? Awesome. Great job. Oh, and Berica says, it's my first time live streaming. I'm really happy you use watercolors with calligraphy brushes. Perfect brush for watercolor. And let's see, what else are people talking about? Johnny says, yes, I constantly, whoops, sorry, your comment just scrolled up. Emma Chapman Lee says, haven't used watercolors in a few years. Super excited. I'm finding the stream is really helping me pace myself. Yeah, I mean, I love painting with other people, you guys. It's really, I don't know, it's a way to not go insane. Does that make any sense? Like, that's how I feel like when I'm painting with other people. I'm like, oh, I'm not crazy. Okay, it's fine. All right. Yeah, it's still, I don't know. I'm starting to get very dissatisfied, guys. It's starting to, I don't know. This might be one of those things where you have to like take a break and come back. Tell me in the chat, by the way, you guys, do you think you would like to see me work on this again? Because painting takes time. It's slow. So much slower than the draw alongs. So tell me in the chat if we don't get super far with this, do you want to see me like finish this? Or do you want to just see the beginning? Because people have different preferences. And I know sometimes people just want to see you get started. Other times people are like, no, I really want to see the finish. So tell me in the chat if you guys would like to see that, or if you just want to see the beginning. Okay, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go up to the top, and let's put in some really darks around the hair. So I'm putting in a lot of this. Oh, cool. So I guess people want to see me finish. Awesome. Okay, so we might do this as a 2-part draw along, because I can already feel that I'm not going to finish this all the way for sure. I mean, I'll get there, but I don't want to rush it also. Like, you know what's weird is even though watercolor is a pretty, quote, fast medium, like it doesn't take long to put it down, I actually paint sort of slow when I use watercolor. And I'm not like that with oils. Like with oils, I'm a lot faster. So this is a very different rhythm for me. In general, it's harder. I find this so much harder. Yeah, like those of you guys who paint with oil and with watercolor, tell me in chat, which one do you like better? Do you find one is easier or harder? I think oil is, quote, easier in a way, because I feel like there's more you can do. I mean, it could just be that I'm not that good at watercolor. And so maybe that's the reason why. But I just feel like maybe not that it's easier, but maybe that oil painting, it's like it's more forgiving. Like it's more easy to make changes. Whereas I feel like with watercolor, it's like there really is a point where the painting is just tired, and it just like, I don't know, it's like it doesn't want to have that freshness anymore. And I find that very tricky. All right, so we'll make time, you guys, to do a more finished version of this, because I just don't think it's going to happen, especially with all the wrinkles. Like, do people want to see me like do the wrinkles, or do you want the wrinkles to be maybe a little bit more implied? I'm not sure. Like, I don't know that I want to draw every wrinkle, but do you want to see me like really try to do them? Because they can be really cool if you really think about it. Let's get some red. There's such a brilliant red back here, and I'm not nailing it. But yeah, this is a little bit better. It looks really orange on the screen, actually. I'll show you guys afterwards in the Discord. I'll show you what it looks like, because the colors are not accurate here on the YouTube screen. So yeah, I think it looks, it's like really tinted in the YouTube stream. Like I can really see the difference in color. So yeah, color is not accurate right now, what you guys are looking at. Okay, some more of that red. I just want that texture. Oh, that looks really bad. Emergency. Let's take that away. Okay, that's a little bit better. Okay, let's see. Cow Augusto really wants to see the wrinkles. So does Elena and Shin Fish. And let's see, Ganesh is saying oil is way easier to use. Watercolor is much more unexpected. They have a mind of their own. And Ria is saying I like them both. I agree that oil painting is more forgiving, but as I'm learning watercolor, I'm finding it is not as unforgiving as I thought. Well, that is good, because I feel like watercolor is not forgiving to me. I feel like it's like, get down on your hands and knees and beg for mercy type of material. I don't know, it's strange. Okay, what I'm gonna do now, I really need to put like just a big glaze over the right-hand side of the hair. And actually, I'm gonna switch to my really big brush for that, because I feel a little bit picky, and that's not good. So I'm just gonna mix up like a nice dark wash for the right-hand side of the hair, like this. And I think I made it a little too purple. Yeah, that's way too purple. Jeez. Maybe add some, maybe we need some Indian yellow. Who here likes Indian yellow? I really like Indian yellow. Ugh, that's too much. Crap. Oh no, now it's green. All right, maybe that's better. Oh yeah, that's better. Okay, so let's get in like a nice, like big wash of hair. Maybe like this. Yeah, that feels a lot better. Is that it? I don't know. It's really hard to see. Now I feel like I want to put white acrylic over this, because I already like lost all my highlights, and it's totally my fault. Like, this is why, that's the other thing. It's like the lack of white paint really does make it tricky. That's what is very hard about it. Yeah, maybe some more. I don't know. I feel like I'm painting with the same 3 colors. Is that kind of wimpy? I don't know. Here's the thing. My whole excuse, I'm not very good at color. Color is not my thing. Like, if you guys want to see someone who's good at color, look at Lauren Welch's stuff. She's amazing. She really knows what she's talking about. When it comes to color, I do not. I get frustrated really fast and just end up making things dark later on. Okay, I do want to add, I want to soften this area here, maybe with some glazes. And then, let's see, maybe a little more darkness over here. That's the other thing, is like I'm really hesitating in terms of the darks. Like I don't want to put them down too soon. That's why the painting still looks mushy. But that's okay. That's what it has to be. Ugh. Yeah. See, here's the thing. Like I'm starting to get to the point, and tell me you guys if this is the case for you. I'm starting to get to the point where I'm like, oh, I need to step away. So I think I'm going to work on it for just a little bit more. And then I think we'll continue it at another point because I need some time away from this. Like I just already, I feel like I've been looking at it for too long. Is anybody else getting to that point where you're like, I kind of want to step away, just spend a little bit of time where I'm not looking at it for a while and see if you can maybe look at it. Like, because when I go back and I look at my paintings, I'm like, what? I don't remember it looking like that. And then you're like really surprised later on. Actually, you know what, you guys, she has a little bit of a cleft chin at the bottom. It's not that easy to see, but it is there. So I'm going to block that out. Maybe more of that. It's still mushy, but I am proud of myself for not totally filling in everything, which is what I normally would be doing. So yeah. Let me do a little bit more work on the eyes because the eyes are still, well, I mean, for good reason. They're still really mushy. But I do want them to not feel that way going into the second half of this painting. So let me spend a little bit of time just cleaning up that general vicinity. And then maybe more like this. Oh, the lip is going to be hard, you guys. Ugh, this is really hard. Who else is struggling? Like, I totally am like, no. All right, I'm going to do more French ultramarine. And we really need some contrast here. Like, that's really what I'm after right now. It's less about the color. I think it's more about the contrast right now. Like, I just need some dark areas that are going to help define this a little bit better. Let's see. Sea of Hope is saying, whenever I add white gouache, the painting ends up kind of ashy. What am I doing wrong? Well, Sea of Hope, I think it depends on how you're adding the gouache. Like, are you adding the gouache so it's watered down? Are you putting it on more opaquely? I mean, if I were to add white gouache to this, I would just add it as something opaque. I probably wouldn't try to put it on as a glaze. I think that's pretty hard. I know Alex Rowe talks about gouache and watercolor being done together, and that's fine. I think that's another way to do that. Okay, let's get in some serious detail. Well, not serious detail, but just, this is too thin. I don't want to do that. I gotta be bolder. Be bolder, yes. And maybe darken some of this area. Because actually, this eye is pretty dark. It's really not as light as you might think it is. It's pretty dramatic. And this eye too, especially. For sure. Let's see how that starts to come in. Yeah, I was all like, I'm gonna do this really nah. Yeah, I guess you guys talked me into doing a more finished painting, and that's where I am now. That's fine. That's cool. All right, let's really dig into some of this. Like, make it dark. Here too. Oh, that feels satisfying. Okay, I'm liking that better. And those of you guys, hope you did your eye homework. Hope you guys watched the eye stream so that you can understand the structure of the human face. Very helpful, you guys, when you're trying to sort this stuff out. Okay, let me see how much more I can do. I don't want to leave it just yet. I still feel like couple of key areas that really could use a little bit more attention, specifically in here with the eye. At the very least, I don't want to leave it like blank. I just want to give it a little bit of tone. This is that area, the whites of the eyes. You guys probably heard me talk about it in the anatomy stream. It's called the sclera, and it's rarely white. Rarely. So if you have a sclera and it's white, chances are it's glowing. A lot of people do that with the sclera. They make it look very like almost glow in the dark. So you got to be careful about that with the sclera. That's very common. Okay. Be a little bit less up there. Well, I don't know. I mean, this is one of those portraits. It's like, honestly, you really could work on this for so long because it's just so many details that are going on. But I'll tell you guys, I love those details. I think it's beautiful. I mean, like this little area down the center, I'm just going to add a little bit more purple into there because I do want some of these wrinkles more visible. They're not quite prominent enough, and they're starting to become more important as I work this piece. So I'm not going to do all the wrinkles, but I just want to establish a few so I know like what direction they're going in. I feel like that's important. So you don't have to draw every single one in, but you at least have to know like, okay, what direction is the skin actually going in? Like up here, the skin is sort of crossing over like that. And down here, there's almost this like, the strokes are kind of going around. It's very fine. And you guys, if you downloaded this photo from the Discord, you'll see it's a highly, really big photo. So it's like incredible resolution, which is great. I mean, I feel like with reference photos, it's like the higher resolution, the better. So that does help me quite a bit. That's why it's good to take your own references. I took this photo myself, so I can feel that I have more ownership over it. Okay, and maybe just like a little hint. You guys see the wrinkles in the forehead? Like they're pretty minor, but they're definitely in there. And especially with like the brow, I just want to give it a little more structure. I don't know. I'm sort of starting to get into it now. I don't know. Maybe I just needed to like paint for a little while. Let's see. I don't know. I'm going to paint for a little bit more. We'll see what you guys are saying in the chat. And then we'll see where we are. Okay. And maybe this. Oh yeah, this part of the eye should be very dark. I really want that to show up. And then this part too, I'm going to get a little bit bolder with that area. Like that. Let's see. 200 people watching, only 128 likes. We can do better. Yeah, shame on you guys. You should all be liking my video. Ria's asking what channel is the photo in. It's in the news channel, and I also put it in the Draw At Once channel, so you should be able to find both. Honeysuckle says, I really want to continue my watercolor studies. I know the medium is not that easy, but seeing you paint makes me want to practice again. Awesome. Yeah, totally. And you know, you guys, when you're painting, you have to show it to anybody. If you're just painting, there's something really nice about like painting something like just for yourself. Like I actually did these drawings of a family member's dog the other day. It felt good to not put them on Instagram. I was like, yeah, those are just for me. Nobody else gets to see them. Like there's a nice thing about that. Especially now, people are always putting stuff on social media. It's pretty common. Daniel, thank you so much for the super chat. White gouache is good if you want a pastel color in your watercolor. Also, if using on tone paper, using opaquely to get a value lighter than the paper. You know, I've never done that before, actually. I've always done watercolor on white paper, but I'd be interested. And Cal Augusto says, I try to use the paint very diluted on details like wrinkles, but her contrasting darker wrinkles are amazing. Yeah. Oh, somebody's here from Peru. Hello, Alien Vidal. And Katzen says, who would dislike this live stream? Yeah, well, people do that. You're on YouTube. I mean, you guys, I got some great troll comments that we have saved because they're just really entertaining. I'm like, wow, you have a lot of hate in your heart, don't you? Like, yeah, you just have to wonder about, you're like, really? You don't have anything else to do? Like, I'd rather watch a Michael Fassbender movie than like write a nasty comment on YouTube. Like, that's way more fun. I'll never understand it, honestly. I'm like, there's so many other ways to use your time than to leave a trolly comment. It's just like, okay, whatever. Whatever, people. Whatever floats your boat. It's fine. I mean, I feel pretty lucky actually that we have like such a nice audience on YouTube. Like we generally do not get a lot of rude comments. I mean, inevitably you're gonna get a few. That's definitely just part of the gig. Just being on YouTube, you're gonna get stuff like that. But yeah, that's why we have moderators and people who take care of it, so it doesn't have to be such a problem. Okay, I want to clear up the mouth a little bit more because I feel like this dark spot really like needs to be dark and pronounced for that to really work. And then maybe over here, a little bit more emphasis. Okay. Let's see. Maybe some dark in the eyes, just so I can establish it, because I think that would help. A little in there, and then get in the pupil. It's a little bit more like that. Okay, wow, that is like really too bright. I feel like I should lower the brightness on my webcam. Maybe that's a little bit much. Okay, let's see. I want to see what you guys are doing, so give me a second. Let's get my stuff. All right, and so by the way, remember you guys, if you want to see the full supply list with pictures and links, go to artprof.org and you want to go to tutorials and find the Utah watercolor painting tutorial, because we have all that information there. And remember, this is a really good anatomy lecture if you guys want to know about the head, because it's very, very helpful. Amia Zope says, this looks really hard. It is hard, but honestly, guys, I feel like a lot of it, you just got to sit down and do it. Like, that's actually the hardest thing, is just getting over that hump of beginning. That's really hard. And that's why it's nice to paint with other people, because then you feel like you're not so crazy for doing all those things. So yeah, for sure. Potatoes Au Gratin says, I'm glad I discovered this channel. Very cool. I'm glad you found us. And same thing with Sinister. Hi, I'm from India. Love your lessons so much. You're so fun. Thank you guys so much for watching. I just am sort of amazed that people want to hear what I have to say. I'm like, really? Okay, cool. Awesome, you guys. All right, you guys, I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pick up this painting in a second stream. So what I'm going to do now is I'll take a photo of it in progress. I'll put it in the Discord. You guys can look at it. And we'll work on it again some other time, so I can spend some time away from it and think about where to push it next. Art Prof has a podcast. It's available on Spotify and also on iTunes. I will be hanging out in the Discord in the Draw-Alongs channel in a few minutes. I hope you guys will meet me there and show me what you painted during the Draw-Along. Subscribe to our channel and join the Art Prof family. And thank you so much to our top Patreon supporters who make everything possible. Thank you to everybody for hanging out with me in the chat. I had such a great time. Can't wait to see what you guys are doing. Have a great night. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.